Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and do I have an amazing person to introduce you to, John Chappelear. John, welcome.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's great to be here.
Cool. So great to have you. And we're going to be talking about how love surrounds us. And John, you have an amazing story of transformation. Very, very powerful story. I would love to have you share that with all of us.
Well, it started out, and I think one of the things that I talk about is being I've been in recovery, and I'm a recovering big shot. So the issue, and that's sort of where I came up with love, because where I was originally was hubris surrounds us, and what I ended up doing was becoming very successful, but very insignificant in the lives of the people around me, which is, my intention was never to do anything but be valuable to my wife, my kids, my community. And really what happened for some reason or another is, I guess I got the hubris overcame me versus the love overcame me. And I just started focusing on more and more. And so, if more is all you're shooting for, then more is never enough. And so you're constantly trying to grow and get that. Eventually, that sort of crashed and burned, which tends to happen for many people. When you have a one-legged stool and somebody kicks the leg out from under it, you're kind of like, oh man, how did this happen? So the hubris got cracked because a lot of the financial stuff that I had at the time. A lot of people go through these gifts of devastation, but for me, it was financial crisis. And the interesting thing was, all the people that I had focused on while I was trying to make more, I didn't hear from any of those people. But the people that I had ignored for years and years and years, because of course I was doing it all for them, I was sort of putting them on a back burner while I took care of all this other stuff. And when I came back to focus on them, they were the people who were standing there behind me and supporting me and saying, oh, okay, don't worry, we'll get this started again. It wasn't, it wasn't a fluke, wasn't anything else. Let's get going. And I finally, that sort of woke me up to the idea that this love that they were covering me with, or surrounding me with, had been there the whole time. I just had been ignoring it.
Wow.
And that's when I began to see that, in any situation, in any situation, we can change our focus almost instantly. I have a story about the day the bank came in and sort of took over my company. I'd been building for 12 years, had 400 employees. We were doing, tens of $60 million a year or so. And that was in 1988. So it was a good sized company. Yeah. The day the bank took the keys from me and said, thank you, we'll just take all your assets. I drove home, and when I got home, the back door was mostly glass, and our 3-year-old son was standing at the back door, kind of giving it one of these, and dad's home. And he didn't know that this was the worst day of my life. He didn't, like, dad's home. So I walk in the door, and he puts his hands up like little kids do, pick me up kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Not today, buddy. And he just kept at me, come on, Dad, come on. And then he said, it's good for you. I was like, okay, let me pick you up, pick him up. And I'm walking around, and he's telling me about Snuffleupagus and all these other things that are really important, really critically important to him. And then what we used to do in the old days was we would do a thing called rat tail fighting, where you roll up a towel and snap it at each other. Yeah. And so he said, let's play that. So I said, okay. So I put him down. He goes and gets towels. We roll him up. Now, I don't need child services called. I never smacked my child with a rolled up towel, but I did smack the floor behind him. He occasionally would catch me, but I didn't have any problem with that. Yeah. So the house had worked out as a big circular plan, and I would chase him around the house with this, and he would squeal, and then it would be his turn to chase me. We would go back and forth, but his laughter worked on me like a jacuzzi works on knotted up muscles. It was just on this day of all days. Right. I'm laying on the floor at the end of this time, looking up at his face, looking at his laughter. And I'm thinking, if on a day like this, I can find joy and love in a situation like that, just because I stopped focusing so much on me and started focusing on what's going on out here.
Wow.
Instead of cutting myself off, but allowing myself to stay connected, regardless of situations,
right?
I could find that love continues to surround me. So that's kind of where that is.
That is so cool. Oh yeah, so let's backtrack to you left college and you did this and you built what'd you go to college for, and just take us through that timeline and what really was going on with the banks and
well, it was, I had opened this company in about 4 years after I got out of graduate school. I worked for my father for a little bit. That was one of those situations where, if you don't get along with somebody 2 or 3 hours in the evening when he gets home from work,
right?
You probably shouldn't work together 6 days a week. So,
what business was that, John? What were you guys?
He had a small office supply business in a stationery store in the Georgetown section of Washington. So it was very high end, nice stationery, Mont Blanc pens, that kind of thing. But it was a 3,000 square foot retail store that had been there since 1887.
Wow.
So I'm walking around in this little 3,000 square foot store going, this is not my career. This is not what I want to do. So I wanted to build a business that was commercial version of that, where you had salespeople that went out and talked to companies, and the companies bought larger quantities of products and you delivered them. So in 79, I took out a second trust on my house, which I didn't realize was that much of a scary proposition until it was much later. But I took a second trust out on my house and we started up a company in Alexandria. I had a couple of friends.
John?
I'm sorry. I had two friends who, one I had worked with and one I had just known, who decided to help me. One of them came to work with me at the time, and the other one was a commercial supplier to office products companies.
Got it.
So we sort of got it started. We hired in the morning, I would sell it in the morning, wrap it at lunch, and deliver it in the afternoon, kind of thing, in my little Dodge Colt station wagon. And so eventually, we got a driver, and then we hired another salesperson, and we got accounting and purchasing departments built up. And, year one was, I don't know, a couple $100,000 and just enough to pay for everything. Right. And then we basically, I knew exactly what was wrong with the industry. My father had been in the industry before he had the stationery business. I knew growing up what the weaknesses were. So we just focused on what the clients needed better than what they were getting. And the business grew quickly. I mean, we became the largest Westinghouse furniture dealer in the country. We became the largest office supply company in Virginia, the third largest in the Washington, D.C. area. So that was from 79 to 1991. Okay. And 1991, there was a financial crisis, very similar to 2006, 7, 8, 9 kind of thing. Yeah. And what happened was the banks required, the IRS required the banks to remove inflated real estate off of their books. And they were carrying the real estate as an asset. And so they had tons of assets because they had tons of real estate that was overvalued. So when they would take it all off, all of a sudden they had no cash. They had no values. So they needed to get cash. So they went out and looked for any loan that was liquidatable.
Wow. And what was that ratio, John?
The ratio, well, the thing is, the ratio got out of skew. It was probably about 6-to-1 debt to equity. Okay. You were kind of okay. In the 80s, you were kind of way okay to be out of ratio, but the bank had just loaned me an extra $1 million. So the ratio went from 6-to-1 to like 15-to-1. So it went out of ratio very quickly. Yeah. The business was growing along. We had financial statements that were all audited financial statements by in those days was a big 7 firm. So we had a clean bill of health from everybody, except for the fact that the bank needed liquidatable assets. And so we were out of ratios, so we were liquidatable. And I remember going into court that morning, the day of the hearing, and I remember hearing the judge say, "This is the most unethical thing I have ever seen happen in my life.
I can imagine. And John, it reminds me of these people who got like the balloon loans, like the lower interest and the balloon, and so many people lost their homes and stuff. So keep going. Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. But the thing I was waiting for from the judge was an and I'm going to do this. But what I ended up with was a but. I never saw anything so unethical, but, you did sign these documents. You are out of ratio. So thanks very much. And here's your business.
Thanks for playing.
Thanks for playing. That's right. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. So, I'd worked with most of these people hand in hand for 12 years. So it was a very sad time. 1991 was also a difficult time from unemployment. There wasn't a lot of hiring. I had 400 employees that, in 30 or 40 trucks every day that were out. So the trucks had to go back. The employees lost their jobs. We had clients, we had furniture clients who had put in lots of deposit money on large furniture orders that were coming, that the bank kept all that.
Oh my gosh.
They bounced my state tax check. We had done, I don't know, $7 or $8 million the month before. So whatever 4% of that is, we had sent that to the state of Virginia, and the bank bounced that check before they cleared it. Ooh. And then of course the state was supposed to go to the bank to get the money, and the bank just went, sue us. And so
highway robbery.
So the state just went, well, then we'll just get it from John. We were,
got messier and messier, didn't it?
It just got messier and messier and messier. I go out one morning and my cars are gone, kind of thing. Oh, yeah. So it's just like, this is just lovely. Experiences that I never thought I would have. The year before, I'm at the Kennedy Center in the Gold Circle, backstage and upstairs and special seating and all this other stuff. And now I'm trying to figure out where the heck my car went.
Right.
So, so hubris got repossessed, and a friend of mine loaned me a 1979 Rambler wagon. And that was from my 911 Carrera convertible to a 1979 Rambler wagon with one window that worked. It was the passenger side rear window that would go up and down. Nothing else worked.
Oh,
and all of a sudden, humility began to invade my iron will of hubris. And instead of being resentful about the Rambler, I was so grateful that somebody would just walk over and say, why don't you use this until you get yourself back on your feet? The car ran fine. Yeah. And once I got my ego out of the way and realized this is something to be grateful for, rather than, I got to drive all this at night because I don't want anybody to see me in this kind of thing. Because I'm so worried about what other people think of me. And the answer to that question is, what other people think of me is not very much, because,
none of your business anyways.
It's none of your, exactly. But the one thing I know that people are not thinking about is they're not thinking about me. You walk into a room and you're like, well, I hope my tie is right. I hope this is good. People are busy talking to each other. They're not really that interested.
Worry about their own ties.
Exactly. So, I got the wagon, and of course, then I started another company, and the other company started growing, and it was a whole different business, but we used the same client base. So it made it very easy. I started brokering printing. And so the clients who brokered printing were the same people that bought office supplies and office furniture.
Nice.
So back to those clients and start up a very successful business, the next business for the next 12 years. Okay. And my daughter worked with me for a few years, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, backtrack to how you actually treated your first family, that you had the two girls. I love your anniversary story. That was a good detail.
Yeah, that's coming home late. Yeah, it's it's another one of those, I'm doing it all for you kind of thing mindset. And I don't. You remember the embarrassing issue, but you don't remember the reason it was so important to miss it. I remember missing the anniversary dinner, but I don't have any idea what was so important that caused me to miss it.
Right.
But I remember
And
my
I'm sure
wife.
those were the words from your wife too. Like, what was so important that you had to miss her anniversary
Exactly.
dinner?
Well, actually, by the time I got home, everybody had gone to bed.
Which anniversary was it, John? Let me interrupt you there.
It was probably a 10th anniversary, something like that.
That gives some perspective. Yeah.
And,
so you walk in.
And I walk in, I'd completely forgotten about this being important, of course, because it wasn't important to me. Why would it be important?
Oh.
So I get home, lights are off. That's kind of normal for me. So I walk through the house, look in the dining room, and on the dining room is a full setup of dinner and balloons tied to the chairs that are still up saying, "Happy anniversary, honey."
That's when you clicked, it was your anniversary then?
That's when it, kind of, come on, John, you're supposed to be a smart guy here. What's going on?
Yeah, candles were burnt down.
Yeah, candles were burnt. I mean, it was one of those things where you just go, oh God, it's like showing up late I miss soccer games and back to school nights and all these kinds of things that I thought were superfluous. It's just, I'm working on this. You take care of it. Yeah, that's right. I love that line. I remember my father used to use it all the time. And I'm doing this is for you, kind of thing. It's like,
so apples don't fall far from trees, and you came by it honestly.
I know.
Right? To the point it ruined your marriage.
It absolutely ruined from you. It absolutely ruined the marriage. And Pat and I divorced, oh gosh, I don't know. It was a long time ago because Susan and I have been married 33 years. So, and it was probably 3 or 4 years between marriages, kind of thing. So,
how old were your girls when you divorced, John?
The girls were probably, and that's another one of those things that it's like the rat tail story with Dayton is sitting out on the back deck of that house, telling my 2 beautiful girls that I wasn't going to live here anymore. And I remember distinctly thinking to myself when I first got married and we first had kids that I was not going to have the same kind of marriage that my parents had, which was filled with all kinds of rancor and psychological blackmail and all kinds of things. Yeah. And, this is going to be so different. And, you
made it different by not being there, then it didn't happen, right?
Right.
There's a subconscious one for you.
That's right. I mean, it's like, I look back now and I go, what was so important? Why was this, and it was 100% ego driven. Didn't have anything to do with them. It didn't have anything to do with, it was that let's make sure that we're in that Kennedy Center Gold Center. Let's make sure that we're on the A list of getting invited to parties and stuff. Yeah. And it really, my kids didn't care about that. Pat really didn't care about that. I mean, she liked to go to a few things, but it wasn't like this. She wasn't on this ego trip.
No. So how did the girls react?
Well, the girls didn't react particularly happily. They were very much in tears and very sad. Yeah. And, I did the best I could, as a ego-driven, self-centered businessman. Now being single, which went, okay, let's pull out all the stops. Let's go absolutely crazy, go out every night, different women all over the place. Let's go insane, and then come back and spend every other weekend with the kids and try to pretend like you're a good dad.
So when did the kids kind of your girls estrange you?
Well, the girls just kind of began to wander away because I began to wander away.
Got it.
I'm over here trying to live this life and occasionally bring the girls into that life.
Yeah. Were they ever mad at you? Or you guys just?
I think they were probably more sad and disappointed than angry. Because they were too young by the time. And the good news is by the time they got to be older, like high school kids, I had already married Susan. I got married
your son.
1980. I better not mess this up because
let's not go there, John. Let's keep you safe.
in 86. So the girls were 10 and 12 when I married them. So by the time they got to be teenagers, the good news is Susan became their best friend.
Oh,
and
good. Nice.
just she fit in so wonderfully into the group.
Oh,
And she and the girls really, I mean, the book, I dedicated the book to them because they really sort of, from that point forward, the shell around me, which I was using as a protective shell to keep my ego strong,
right.
sort of broke apart. And I realized that I don't need this ego to live in a peaceful, happy way.
Wow.
I don't need to keep chasing this carrot. The happiness is right over there. And if I just run over there, it'll be great. And I realized
just life.
that's right.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like an at least life. Well, at least, I don't beat my children. Well, at least I love it. And
that's right. So
and you mentioned
the bad as he was,
Yeah, there's the book, The Daily Six, which is like seriously cool.
Thank you.
You have these 6 things that people can do so they don't end up with your story.
That's exactly right. The idea here is, if you'd like this, humans have a tendency to require pain to create permanent change. Everybody's on a low-fat diet after a heart attack.
Oh, good one.
Everybody is a financial expert after the bankruptcy, or a great parent, as I became after the divorce. Mm-hmm. But for me, the point I was trying to make is I went through this gift of devastation.
Ooh, I love that
with
term.
the kids and the divorce and the business and all the other stuff. So maybe I could create a plan for people, or for me. Actually, this was written originally for me, because somebody came to me and said, you seem to be much more peaceful than I ever remember you being.
Wow.
You're not pounding on the steering wheels to set off the airbag kind of thing. You're not yelling and screaming at people. What's going on with you? And I hadn't thought about it before. And so I sort of sat down and quantified what it was I was doing on a daily basis. And I gave it to a friend of mine who also owned a company, because I did run companies for almost 30 years in DC.
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of other CEO friends who said, whatever you're doing, we would like to do that too.
Neat. So
I ended up, I don't think I have one around here, but I designed a card, just a little, fold over business card, and it had the 6 ideas on it. And that's as far as it had gotten. We hadn't gotten to a book yet.
Got it.
And I gave that to friends, and they began to say, I started a series of CEO level coaching. The business is like, well, could you come over and talk to me about this? Because I'm having some problems with my wife, or I'm having some problems with my kids, or I'm having some problems with my people. I'm not really involved to those. And,
nice.
The guy who shows up on Friday, making sure that everybody's at work, but he's dressed for golf, kind of thing.
Right.
And then wonders why my people aren't being overly loyal to me.
Thanks. So, I love it, John.
So the idea is just, what can we do? Doesn't have to be a big thing. What can we do on a daily basis to keep ourselves centered and balanced, and on a path towards love, a path towards joy, a path towards emotional balance? Because when I'm centered and balanced, when I'm being guided by love and forgiveness and gratitude, I stay emotionally stable. And that's regardless of what's going on around me. Yeah. So I can be in a chaotic environment like work. I can be in a stressful situation like high pressure, high stress, first responder kind of work. But I can stay detached from that because I have a position of being centered and balanced. So my behavior stays calm.
Nice. And then you can be in touch with the fact that love does surround you.
Yes, and then you can be that. You can be the love that you can exude, that level of love which calms the situation down. I don't want to be reductive, but we have a new puppy, and the idea is when you meet the dog every day and you go to put the leash on, you're calm, so the dog doesn't get wild and crazy.
Yes. Isn't that the way puppies are such mirrors?
Exactly. And really and truly, if I don't know that I don't want to try and put human emotions onto animals, but I can tell you for a fact that when you live love and you live peacefully and you live with a sense of gratitude and forgiveness, because really all those really go together. The concept of being loving and forgiving to me is two sides of the same coin.
Right.
When those are your guiding principles on a daily basis, it's amazing how much calmer you become, more peaceful you become.
Yeah.
And that gives you a dramatically higher level of influence, because people want to control things, but you can't control anything. But you can, I wish.
Like, let it go, folks.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay.
We can have influence. We can have influence, and we can have really powerful and good influence if we stay centered and balanced. But if we lose that and we become part of the chaos, the influence vanishes.
Yeah, it's so cool, John.
Or it becomes very negative.
Love it. And love your message. And people can get a hold of you at your website. That's right there, John Chappelear.
Right, johnchappelear.com. And
all right.
On the website, I have you can sign up for the Positive Thought of the Week.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can send me an email or contact me directly to see how we could work together on creating some positive change, either individually or with the team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. This has been so powerful.
Oh, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And I'm really glad that you like the material. It
love it.
Gives me a sense of maybe it was worth it to write. It was
right. That's how it is, right? It's like, and that's the crux though. If you want to write a really good book, write it for yourself. Don't care about anybody else. And your peeps will come. And they did. They came almost instantly. So yay on ya. Very good. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.